Good morning. My name is Gavin Skelly, and I am the founder of an organisation called FireAware, an organisation that was created to try and bring positive cultural change to delivery of fire safety in the UK. Fire safety is an important topic. At the moment, the industry and the sectors that revolve around the fire safety arena are suffering from a lack of confidence in the public eye about how fire safety is delivered. Since the terrible events of Grenfell Tower and the subsequent cladding crisis, the news is constantly full of stories about poor construction, poor quality, and the manipulation of the rules that lead to the general public having a mistrust in the industries that are providing the built environment and in their ability to do this in a safe manner. So why do we need cultural change? It is clear, and still is, that there is a decline in standards in the delivery of fire safety on a global scale. There are many fires in recent years around the world which can all be tracked back to an issue around the morality in the delivery of the products, whether that be in the construction or in the development or in the management of the buildings. All the problems that have been created seem to come from the simple fact that greed is replacing morality. And this has to stop. This cannot continue. We cannot continue on putting money before the safety of the people that use the buildings that we create. It is simply not appropriate. It is not acceptable, and we need to make it stop. The race to the bottom is a definition of the procurement process that's been a major part of the issue. Doing the bare minimum is no longer acceptable. Manipulating the rules for the sake of profit is no longer acceptable. We cannot continue down the route of ignoring end user safety because the bottom line is the most important thing that a developer or a contractor or a materials producer or a landlord or anybody in the supply chain thinks is an appropriate manner of working. So how do we change? The obligation for end user safety rests with every single member of the supply chain, from the developer at the start of the process to the landlord who, at the end, who buys a single flat to rent it out. But we need to identify these businesses as ones that care. At the moment, it is very difficult to identify a particular business and its moral position. Many businesses in this country are absolutely 100% sure that they are putting safety first. But how do we see this? How does the general public recognize this? There is nothing to say on the side of a building site, on the side of a van, on the clothes that we wear when we construct, that we are concerned and we are considerate about the end user safety. We need to instill a commitment to responsible behavior in the members of this multi-sector environment, but we need to identify them as such. We can't just allow people to assume that we don't care anymore. We need to show them that we are FireAware. What is FireAware? We created FireAware as an organization to inflict positive cultural change, to improve this situation. It's a not-for-profit membership organization that seeks to identify any business within the supply chain of the built environment that chooses to strive for the delivery of safer buildings. The profit that we make from membership will be reinvested into training subsidies so that people who are entering the industry can be trained. And if money is an issue in doing that, we will help to subsidize that. We also would like to use profits, if we can, to help in any way with the cladding crisis, to try and improve the lives of the people that are currently suffering terrible hardships because they are stuck in buildings that, unfortunately, the banks don't trust anymore. The developers are built to building regulations correct at the time of construction, but they still can't raise mortgages against those properties because the banks don't trust, after everything that we've seen in the last few years, the fact that the buildings have been built correctly. So people are stuck, and it's a huge socio-economic issue. People are suffering real hardship with service charges being increased to cover the cost of repairs to buildings, and people who simply can't afford to pay these fees or bills being left in buildings that they consider to be unsafe. So we think using FireAware revenue to plough back into that particular issue, plus training for people coming into the industry, is only going to improve matters in the future. We are looking to raise standards. We are looking to improve the ability of people who are coming into the industry, and we are looking to try and help those people that are stuck. If you take into account the amount of businesses across the country in the supply chain of the built environment that could identify themselves as businesses that do care about end user safety, the volume of membership who can identify themselves as fire aware is quite substantial. Therefore, the annual revenue will be quite substantial. Therefore, we could raise in a relatively short time a good revenue stream that could be plowed back in to make positive change. So how does it work? We ask all members of FireAware to commit to a moral obligation charter. Now, these charters are designed to take into account the different disciplines that make up the supply chain of the built environment. We have charters for developers at the front end of the process. We have charters for designers, for main contractors, for subcontractors, for building managers, for landlords, because each of these people in this chain have an obligation to end user safety. But the charters are different because each person has a different obligation or a different nuance in the way that they consider the safety of an end user. A subcontractor, for example, will have a different set of obligations to a landlord. A developer will set out his obligations in a different way to a main contractor. But if we combine these obligations together, we end up with a network of morally in tune commitments that interlink and therefore make a better future, a better product. Take a developer, for example. The developer trap, as we call it, is when a developer looks at a building with the intention to buy and develop it. The sales agents and the vendor will tell them that the area of the building that can be developed and sold will end up earning them the GDV, which makes the deal work. The developer thinks, well, okay, this is great. I can accept this as a deal. And then he goes off and gets financing and gets equity investment to buy the building. Once the building's bought, the developer then looks at building control, building regulations, and how the building has to be built technically correct. And this can have a great effect on how the building actually is carved up into sellable area and non-sellable area, because the fire safety delivery aspects will require means of escape and smoke shafts and things that will take up the internal area of the building and not allow that to be sold for profit. So all of a sudden, the developer's in a position where his original GDV estimates have been reduced because the technical requirements of the building mean that he has to commit area to compliance. All of a sudden, the developer's in a position where his deal is now not working because he hasn't got enough GDV to make the profits he originally thought. And he's already in contract with a bank or in contract with an equity provider. Suddenly, the deal turns bad. The developer then puts pressure on everybody in the supply chain to do things as cheaply as they can and as quickly as they can, which is the race to the bottom. Everybody does the bare minimum. And in doing so, creates buildings that can be considered risky because they're not using the best methods to deliver a safe building. So what we ask to stop this is that a developer, for example, in their moral charters, will specify that they only want to use accredited installations, fire doors, passive fire installations. These particular items of a building's fire strategy are unregulated in respect to who actually applies them on site. A fire door can be fitted by a standard joiner who hasn't got to be trained in fire door installation, for example. But there are many, many businesses out there who are accredited, who have done training, who know exactly how a fire door works and exactly how it should be fitted. But because of their accreditations, their fees are higher than they would be if they were unaccredited. But a developer or a contractor under pressure financially is always going to choose the bare minimum. This is the race to the bottom. They're always going to choose the people who are going to cost them less, which means that the delivery of their building is less safe than it can be because of the people that they're using to do the work. So the developer's moral charter asks him to set out to his tendering contractor, for example, that they will only use accredited installers, which makes a safer building. The downside to the developer on that is obviously his tender price is going to be more expensive because it's going to come back with accredited costs, which are always going to be higher than non-accredited. However, the developer gets to wear our badge. The developer gets to wear his FireAware badge, and he can brand his site as just that. And his customers, given the current climate, will be much more interested in a building that they can demonstrably prove is safer because of the way it's been built and the people that have built it, and the fact that those people have taken a stand on their moral position to say that we're only going to produce the safest building we can. These charters can be applied, as I said, to many disciplines that make up the built environment, but each one interlinks up and down the supply chain, and it just increases the ability for us to provide a generally safer future. But what is important about these charters is that they can be tested because they are visible. If they are used and inserted into a building contract, for example, then the contractor is obligated by the contract to stick to his moral position, and he can be tested because he can be examined for his performance and challenged as he would be by quality. He can be tested on his moral performance to make sure that he is undertaking the commitments that he said he would do in the first place. Equally, now that the membership of FireAware is a visible identity, an offending contractor who is not complying with his moral obligations can be reported back to the FireAware organization. And we can look at this, and we can either work with that contractor to help them improve, introducing them to other members of FireAware who may well be carrying out the same type of work, but doing it in a better way, a safer way. So we can educate the people that are seen to be failing. But ultimately, we can take those people out of membership. And what that means is there is a footprint on that business. And all of a sudden, it's a visible footprint that people can research and look into. And if that proves that a contractor is more risky than his competitors, then that puts that contractor in a very poor trading position, because his competitors will be FireAware and he will not. Therefore, it's in his best interests to make sure that they continue with their obligations that they're committed to and make sure that they uphold them. And this, again, improves the situation because it makes for a safer combination of contractors. Creating a large group of multi-sector but independent businesses that trade on visible moral positions will positively affect the entire ecosystem of fire safety delivery. We are stronger together. I'll now play a short video that explains this process, and we will explain how FireAware can positively affect the entire ecosystem of fire safety delivery. We are stronger together. Defining better procurement in the delivery of fire safety. Supply chain members, these are generally the different organizations that act to produce the built environment. And they stack up in a sequence that looks like this. Your clients at the top, pre-delivery, the delivery components, and the post-delivery. The current procurement process sees a client employing a delivery team and a post-delivery team. But we are aware of underperformance across the sectors, poor workmanship, manipulation of the rules and regulations, and ignorance of end user safety, leading to a race to the bottom across all parts of the industry. This is the current landscape. This is how we see it. There are businesses in each sector that are not performing well. So how can we change these attitudes? We get the clients initially to sign up to FireAware, and they identify their own moral position. They then ask through their tendering or through their employer's requirements that their supply chain signs up to FireAware, so that they know that each of their team has identified moral commitments. In the case of poor performance within these sectors, this can be then reported back to the FireAware organization. And we can work with the people that are considered to be underperforming and make them better by introducing them to other members of our organization who can help. Ultimately, the problem is when we simply can't help an organization and they can be removed from membership. Therefore, it takes them out of the marketplace. We introduce a new FireAware member into that position, and suddenly we've got a morally in tune framework which works together to produce a safer environment. And the wider effect of this is that the industry improves across the board in every part of the sector, resulting in industry-wide improvements in standards. We are stronger together. The FireAware website is the vehicle for membership. It provides a directory of morally in tune businesses. It provides a community where those that need help can easily access those that can help. And it provides educational content for the benefit of the members. For example, we've created a video that can be used by main contractors to educate their subcontract teams prior to them going out on site to fit fire-safe components. This is to connect the responsibility of the work they carry out with the result of them carrying it out poorly and what that could mean to the people who eventually inhabit the building that they're creating. It takes the installer all the way through to the end of the line, which may well be in some cases a couple of years in advance, but it connects the fact that what they do really matters to the people that are going to use that building. We call this video Don't Have a Bad Day. I'd like to play it for you. Further to membership, there is also compliance. When members join FireAware, we ask them to upload their compliance evidence relating to their discipline. This could be something as simple as a landlord's contract with a tenant, or as technical as an accreditation for passive fire installation. Members are tasked with uploading evidence of their moral commitments also. So the charters that they sign, the commitments that they've made, they must answer questions annually on how they are performing against those particular aspects. Compliance is checked and updated, and members are tasked with going above and beyond minimum standards. So in summary, FireAware provides an identity to morally compliant businesses, provides a method of identifying businesses that need help to comply, provides a community bringing those seeking information together with morally attuned businesses, raises standards across all sectors of those who own, create, or let property. Thank you.